Okay, we'll get started in just a second or two. If you could keep your videos off so I don't get a bunch of boxes on my screen, I'd appreciate that. And all that good things. And again, just a couple reminders on the screen. So for all of our lectures and stuff that we do online, if you can, just make sure your videos are off because otherwise I get like 30 boxes on my screen and it's hard to see what I'm trying to look at. So. I'll give everybody a couple of minutes just to kind of get in, and we're just kind of talk about a couple of things, make sure everybody could log in okay and kind of meet. And before we get started as well, you should also see a chat box. That's probably, again, the best way if you do have any type of questions or anything like that to ask your questions. Again, you could type something that everybody could see, or if you want to type something sort of privately to me, it'll be labeled privately, and I'll try to obviously see that. I'm probably going to keep the microphones off so we don't all sort of talk over each other and stuff like that. And like I said, if you're just coming in, if you could keep, just make sure it looks like everybody's video is off. Please don't put your video on or anything like that. Again, because it pops up a lot of boxes on my screen and I lose a lot of what I'm trying to look at. So hopefully everybody could hear me. If you can't hear me, you might need to adjust the volume on your end. So make sure you turn the volume up on your end. All right, so just a test. So a couple of people maybe want to let me know, type in the chat, you can hear me okay and everything. Perfect. Good. And again, like I said, I can't go too loud on my end, otherwise you get a lot of feedback and stuff like that. So again, if you need to, you might need to adjust a little bit on your side. Okay, so looks like we got a good amount of people here. So like I said, a couple of things, I just really wanted to meet today. I know technically it's a holiday today, but just wanted to make sure everybody could kind of meet today and log in okay with no problems. And that way, you know, when we start officially on Thursday, we'll be good to go. I also just want to talk a little bit about sort of how the class is going to proceed from this point forward and stuff like that. So I'm not going to do any type of lecturing today or anything like that in terms of material, but I just want to kind of maybe use today to get all the business sort of out of the way. So everybody sort of has an idea as to, from this point on, how we're going to proceed in this class. So first off, a couple of things. Obviously, we moved 100% online. My guess is probably for the rest of the semester, we're going to go 100% online. And that includes both the lecture and the lab component. So a couple of things about the online. This is typically how we will log in and do lecturing, and also obviously lab time as well. Do a similar type of meeting for lab time. Now, on the screen, you should be able to see my screen. Just a couple of reminders that anything that we sort of do in this fashion online is being recorded and probably will be later posted up on our Canvas site, or a link on our Canvas site to like a YouTube video of it. So obviously, if you participate in anything with your microphone, your video, which you shouldn't be doing anyways, or anything like that, you would be part of obviously that posting and stuff like that. With that being said, since you can't chat and everything and talk to everybody online together here, please be respectful in your comments that you make, just like in person, because again, they are being recorded and everything like that. Any videos and stuff that do get posted up is obviously for your own personal use for this class. You shouldn't repost it anywhere else or anything like that. So the nice thing, I guess, about sort of lecturing this way as well is pretty much everything that you'll see up on the screen will get captured by the captured by the recording. So, for example, again, if I start scribbling on the screen, if I start. So pretty much whatever I write there on the screen will be recorded. So anything I scribble as we're going through these lectures, if you look back at the video that will be uploaded, you'll be able to see all that. So if I work out problems or I write something down on sort of the slide, you will be able to see it again in the recording. So you could go back and kind of look at it again. So I will be posting, I have already on our Canvas site, some lecture notes, kind of like the ones I give out in class that you can print out and use while you're listening to these lectures. Or again, like I said, everything will pretty much be displayed up on the screen in the video and stuff like that, and you'll be able to see it. So we are going to continue to lecture this way, and in terms of lectures, they will occur at the same time that it normally was scheduled for our class. So that way, usually most people should hopefully still be available during that time period. So that means every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:45, we will have a lecture meeting, and you can get to it. It looks like most of you have found it one of two ways. In our Canvas site, I will post sort of the invitation like I did the other day, and or you could go to the Confer Zoom part of it and you could click in through there. So those are both ways that you could do it. And then we'll have our lectures on Tuesday and Thursday. I probably will also open up, obviously, a lab meeting, usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays at our normal time as well, in case you do have questions or anything like that. And so we're going to try to keep everything scheduled kind of the normal time, because again, that's sort of when everybody hopefully would have been available for this class and everything like that. Any questions on that? Now, lectures will again still be will be done through PowerPoint, just like we were doing in class. And like I said, kind of the benefit is you can kind of see it on the screen. Everything that gets written that would normally be written on, like on the whiteboard there, will also be up on the screen that you can see and everything. So you'll have the option to do that. Now, in terms of the labs, how the lab portion is going to run, the lab portion of the class will continue. So I did put up also on our Canvas site. So let me take you over there. So give me 1 second here. I'm just going to stop sharing the screen for just a second. And let me try to grab this so we can show you the Canvas site. Okay, you should hopefully be able to see our Canvas site. So this is our Canvas site, obviously. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but just in case. So everything for our Canvas site will basically be posted in the module section over here. And you'll see, again, that's the link for, you'll find a link there for the lectures every Tuesday and Thursday. You'll also find one for lab sessions as well. We'll talk about lab in just a second, but I'll probably open up a lab session again. I'll just be there to answer questions if you have questions and stuff like that. So again, you could get to the live link probably like maybe most of you did using this link here. You could also go through the Confer Zoom part, and when it pops up, there's kind of a schedule up there where you could click in and join in. All right, there's also, this syllabus is still the original syllabus that we did at the very beginning, so I haven't revised anything. So everything's the same in terms of sort of points and percentages. The only thing that's not correct in this syllabus one here is the schedule. So right underneath it is our new sort of lecture and lab schedule. And I didn't really want to maybe well. So if you click on that, obviously that will take you to our new lecture and lab schedule, which you know, has sort of the adjustments happening for everything that took place. And if we look at it, obviously we are here today, which is down here at 3:31. And so again, nothing really scheduled for today because again, it's technically still a holiday, but again, I just wanted to meet with everybody, make sure everybody could get on and maybe get some questions answered if you had questions. Then here's our adjustment one. So obviously exam one has been moved. That's probably the big thing people are thinking about. So tentatively speaking, and again, some of this may change depending on where we're at in lecture and everything like normal, but tentatively on April 16th there, it looks like that's when we'll take exam one. So in terms of the labs, starting on Thursday, we're going to actually start with the kinetics activity. And that kinetics activity is a integrated rates method. It's essentially an Excel exercise. So again, that's something that you could probably do by yourself at home and all that good stuff. And you will have a spot, which I'll show you in a second, where you can kind of upload your assignments when it's all said and done. So in terms of all assignments and stuff like that, and lab reports, including the lab report that you still have out there, which I think is the iodine lab report from up in this region, right? So you should still have that lab report. There will be an assignment box where I will show you in just a second, where you can upload basically your lab reports and any other assignments that you need to turn in as a file. So probably the best way and maybe the easiest way for people to do that, obviously if you don't have scanners or anything like that, most people have a cell phone. There's a lot of apps that you can download that you can use your camera basically to scan your papers and it will turn it into a PDF file. One app that I know for sure that does that kind of made its way around as everybody was going online and stuff like that is Adobe. I think Adobe Scan is the app. And I think there is one. Yeah, there it is. Thank you very much. And Adobe Scan is a good little app. You can use it to basically, like I said, kind of use your camera, scan up everything. It turns into a nice PDF file, and then you can just upload that file. So that's essentially how everything is going to sort of be turned in. Any questions sort of on that aspect of it? Yeah, so the idea is in terms of live lectures, and stuff like that, I think it would be best if you can obviously continue to come during the live time for the lectures. That way you can see the lectures live. If you have questions, you can get your questions answered and stuff like that. I do understand there's a lot going on now for everybody, myself included. So if by some chance you can't make it to a live lecture that day or something like that, again, the recordings of the lectures will be posted up on our website on Canvas, and it probably will be a link to, you can watch it in Canvas if you want, or a link to a YouTube sort of video of it. So you can watch the recorded videos if you want, but you probably would benefit most from attending the live lectures most of the time. And again, that way you could ask your questions if you do have questions and stuff like that. In terms of those recordings, they will be available as soon as I could get them sort of up there. It does take a little bit of time to process the recordings and stuff like that. So it's not immediate, so they won't be up like as soon as technically lecture's over. It does take a little bit of time to process those and sort of upload them. And when I do upload them, they will be on the Canvas site. There'll be a module that says, hey, listen to past lectures and stuff like that. So to benefit yourself, I would highly recommend, like I said, to continue to come at the normal time. That way, just like in a normal class, if you have questions, you can get them sort of answered. Other questions on that? So now in terms of Yeah, to be honest with you, in terms of your lab coat and goggles, I don't really have an answer to that. To be honest with you, the school is pretty much closed to non-essential employees and everybody. I don't think I could get on campus, to be honest with you. So uh, I'm not really sure how that'll be handled. It's a good question. Um, I don't think anybody's really even thought about all that. So maybe at some point you'll be allowed to come back and hopefully get that stuff. But other than that, at this time, I really don't know when sort of access to campus will be available again. So I'll try to look into that for you and let you know maybe next time and stuff like that. I don't really know the answer to being back on campus again, so your goggles and your lab coat. In terms of the rest of the labs that would technically be sort of physical labs, like the equilibrium of a metal, which is the next one after the kinetics there, the pH, which I think we weren't originally going to do, but has been inserted in. So I don't think that was on the original schedule. I could be wrong. Buffers, titrations, how those labs are essentially going to work, which is my understanding, is when we get to those labs and that week that they're scheduled, there will be a module that will be loaded into Canvas where all the other modules are, that will kind of walk you through the experiments. So they may be a combination of you may have to watch some videos. There may be a combination of like PowerPoints. You will get data to use to do calculations and sort of do the lab report. Um, so that's sort of how the physical labs are going to sort of progress at this point. Um, there will be modules that will be posted in Canvas, and it'll kind of walk you through the different parts of the experiment. And like normal, we'll talk about in terms of lab reports, which one you need to kind of write a formal lab report for, which one more is just kind of go through the steps and maybe fill out the information and stuff like that. So um, that's how those labs will sort of progress. Again, I think for some, they might have been able to do some videos. For others, they might not have been able to do videos. So maybe pictures and sort of a PowerPoint with some data for the rest of those labs. So typically when you do watch or go through those labs, it'll be kind of like you're doing it in person. So you'll have to write some procedure down. You'll have to write some notes about the data that you got. You'll have to fill out your carbon pages and stuff like that. You also have to do pre-lab and post-lab questions like normal. And again, depending on the lab report sort of type, there'll be a due date, obviously, for the lab report and for you to upload those files. Any questions on any of that? So the rest of sort of the lab schedule, is fairly in the same order as it was originally. Some things obviously has shifted down since we didn't have school for a couple of weeks. But we're still going to sort of hit all the same sort of experiments as we normally were scheduled to do. We also have the exams sort of scheduled there. So exam 1, exam 2, and exam 3 will still take place during those times. So let's talk about sort of exams and quizzes, which I'm sure is the next sort of thing that maybe people have a question about. Yeah, so in terms of, we'll talk about when each of those lab reports are due in just a second, to give you some idea as to when everything will be turned in. So let's just talk first, though, about quizzes and sort of exams. We were supposed to have a quiz, I think, right there when we were left campus, I guess. So we will have a quiz and exams. They will be done online. And at this point, my thought is it's going to be done online through Canvas. So when we have a quiz or a lab that, a quiz or a exam that's scheduled, you'll log into Canvas and you'll take it. It obviously is an online exam or quiz, which normal rules apply, as we'll talk about that when we get closer, but it is still closed book, no notes, no working together, and all that good stuff still applies. Um, but since we are a chemistry class, and really the online exams and stuff like that aren't very great in terms of showing work, what typically will happen most likely is you'll have the quiz or the exam online. You'll have to work out those problems and provide an answer online. And then once you've completed either your quiz or your exam, you will then have to upload your work as part of your exam. And that is because essentially that will allow me at least the opportunity, if you got the wrong answer, to assign some partial credit. So quizzes and exams will be done online through the Canvas site. And as part of the quiz or exam that you do, you will need some paper to work out those problems that have work associated with them. And again, you'll have to upload the work as part of your exam. And that way, like I said, at least if you punch the wrong answer online and you have some work, I could adjust your score and give you some partial credit where it's appropriate. Otherwise, if we go kind of all multiple choice or something like that, it's like an all or nothing type of situation. And I don't think that's really going to be good for us. So that's sort of how quizzes and exams will work. Any questions on quizzes, exams, how that's going to go? We're not going to use an e-proctor. What will typically happen for the quiz and the exam is it'll be open for a specific period of time. You'll be expected to take it during that period of time. They will be timed, so again, you'll have a certain time period to start and submit the exam or quiz, and then obviously it'll be timed like just like it would be in person. Um, you'll complete it just like you would in person by a specific time period. So that's typically how it'll work. There'll be perhaps different versions of the questions and stuff like that. So you do need to log on. My experience is, we'll talk more about when we get closer. But again, when you start either a quiz or an exam online here through Canvas, the timer starts and does not stop. So before you start any of those quizzes or exams, you want to make sure you have everything that you need and you're prepared. Because again, once you click the start button, there's no way to stop the timer, and it will submit once the timer ends. So you want to make sure that you're prepared to do that. Yeah, in terms of your assignments and submitting PDF is perfect. You can use whatever program you like, as long as it kind of turns it into one file. If you could kind of turn every assignment that you're going to be submitting into just one file, that would be really good. And if you can't do that, then you could maybe take pictures with your phone and set them individually, but that could end up being a lot of different files that you have to upload as pictures. So if you can find some type of program to turn it into one file, it probably would be really good. So that's probably how the exams and quizzes will happen. So like I said, we were supposed to take a quiz on chapter 12. And again, I'll put an announcement up on Canvas, but I'm going to move that, let's see here. I'm going to move that quiz probably to, yeah, so I'm not sure I'm going to do that. So it's going to be through Canvas, and I know some people just post the actual, here's like the quiz document or the exam document. You kind of print it out, work it out, and then turn it back in. So I think we're going to kind of still do it in a format through Canvas, and then you will show your work and upload just your work file and stuff like that. So the quiz that we were normally supposed to have had before we took the break here for chapter 12, I think we're going to give it a go on the 7th, so next Tuesday. on chapter 12, which you should have been prepared for that already because it was supposed to be taken right there when they stopped school. So, and again, that'll be on chapter 12. So we'll do that online. And again, I'll obviously give you more instructions towards the end of the week and obviously before Tuesday as to how to access the quiz, when it will be available, and all that kind of stuff. We're going to give it a try. That will also be very good to kind of give you an idea as to how it will work before the exam that's coming up. That way, at least you'll have an idea and you've taken at least a quiz online or something like that to again sort of see how it works and stuff like that. So that way, at least not right off the bat, your first thing online there is the exam. So that way you can kind of figure out how it works. So April 7th on Tuesday, we will take the quiz that was normally scheduled. It will be available for you to take. And like I said, I'll give you some more information about that a little bit later on in the week, maybe into the weekend, but at some point before Tuesday, you'll obviously have information about that. Any questions about quizzes or exams or that type of stuff? Now, the other thing that we sort of had sort of out there as well is our project, our group project there for 51. And at this point, we're going to still try to do it. I think you probably can still group up and contact each other. I think there's a way to kind of do that through Canvas as well, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so at this point, the 51 project there is still a go. So you still should be, and I think most of you may be grouped up before we took on break and stuff like that. So you should be thinking still about, what topics you might want to do for that and what you might want to submit. What I might do is I think the first due date for sort of potential topics and stuff like that was originally scheduled for next week on the 7th. I will probably push that back, obviously, maybe towards the end of the month. Again, just to give you a little extra time, just kind of re-get together and sort of figure out how you're going to do that. Obviously, get together virtually, not in person, but get together virtually. And sort of figure out how to do that. My anticipation is we will still do some type of presentation. I think through what we're using right now should give you the ability, like I have the ability to show you the PowerPoint presentation. You will also have the sort of the ability to show your PowerPoint presentation towards the end of the semester. So if we're still going at online, which I anticipate we probably would be, you'd be able to obviously do your presentation still up here through the Zoom software, I think. So again, I'll have some more information about sort of the change in due dates, but for sure, I think as of now, we'll move, I believe the very first thing going off the top of my head was your kind of what your groups were and sort of your potential topics. So instead of, I think it was actually the 7th, maybe it was due. We'll move it to like the 30th of April. We'll move it to the 30th of April, and that will give you a little extra time, obviously, to again sort of virtually get together with whoever you're going to work with and come up with some topics and stuff like that. Any questions on that project? So as of now, we're going to try to obviously continue and go through with doing the project. It obviously will be submitted like everything else here. You'll have to upload it by the specific time for each of those sort of steps along the way. And like I said, in terms of the actual presentation part, it probably will be done through sort of what we're doing here right now. Any questions on sort of that project part? Okay, so that's again the schedule, and again this is on Canvas, so you can I actually did post note packets, so it's a good question. I'm going to actually take you back to where you can find all those kind of things. So let's just drop out of that, I think. So again, for us, everything will be in the module section. So if you click on the module section there, sorry, I just got to move some things out of my screen so I can actually see. Hang on here. Okay, so again, in the module section, everything that was up here on Canvas is still pretty much up here. Um, so as I mentioned, this is again the links to the live lectures on Tuesday and Thursdays. And again, I think for lab, although it's sort of things that you could kind of go do and do the modules yourself, I will still open up a lab meeting at our normal time, not today, but starting Thursday. And again, I'll be there really to sort of answer questions or anything like that. So you could pop in if you have questions about whatever you're working on. Again, I would encourage you to try to stick to the schedule because there will be due dates for these things. And again, you don't want it, just like in person, you don't want to kind of procrastinate and let the stuff pile up and try to knock it all out at the end. That way, at least if you do have questions on calculations or anything like that, you could pop into the lab lecture and sort of ask those questions. Again, because we sort of had some time off, there might be some lab sections where I will say I'm going to continue lecturing or something of that nature. So we might use some of the lab time technically for lecturing, and I'll let you know that, hey, today we're going to kind of lecture, and probably you'll find that out during the lecture meeting. I'll say I'm going to probably maybe continue this in lab and stuff like that. I will keep perhaps there will be separate links for both the lecture and the lab. That way, when it's all said and done, there'll be separate recordings for the lecture and the lab. That way, you don't have to like sit through the entire lecture. If you want something in terms of lab, you can just look at it or watch the video. And if you want to look at just the lecture, you can see the lecture by itself. So again, this is the schedule. Here's to answer your question, here's where the lecture notes are. There's going to be a section. So that's the chapter 13 lecture notes, which I think you already have. I think we were working through that, if I'm not mistaken. So I think we got through some of the stuff about equilibrium. I think we stopped maybe right at maybe ice tables and Q values, if I'm not mistaken. So we will pick up lecturing there on Thursday. And again, those will be handouts just like you would be given in class. And like I said, one nice thing about this is, again, you'll be able to see all the slides up on the screen, and anything that I scribble or write, you'll be able to see. It will be saved in the recording. So, you'll be able to kind of see all that stuff. Now, in terms of another question about how you're going to turn in assignments, over here in the module section, you will see this assignment turn-in link, and that assignment turn-in link is where any type of assignment that will be due, any type of lab report, mainly for us as labs, maybe some homework there for an exam day, there will be a link. And basically when you click on the link, so there's the kinetics one that you should have. And when you click on the link, it will take you basically to a place where you can upload your file. And again, sorry, I just gotta get these things out of my screen so I can see what I'm showing you. So I'll give the thing, it's available here from, for example, now until April 7th. I am going to put a due date. The due date will be April 7th by 12 p.m. So you need to upload that lab report. So if I'm not mistaken, I think it was due this week, I think. So you should have hopefully had most of that done. And I think most of you were working on it before we went away and stopped school. So most of you can make some pretty good progress. So as of now, it's going to be due April 7th. I may move it to April 9th, but it'll be due sometime next week. And again, when you're ready, you could hit submit assignment, and I believe it will ask you to obviously upload your file, and you can upload it and then obviously submit it, and then that would be it. So all things that you need to basically submit, you could find in the module section. Yeah, I know I did submit. I'm gonna fail. It's okay. All right, so let's see. All the things you can do in the module section will be under that assignment link to submit it. Any questions on sort of how to submit assignments? So up there right now is the kinetics one, which is that formal lab report. There will also be a place and the box will be open for you to submit the lab that's going to be scheduled for this coming Thursday, which is the kinetics activity. Again, that's pretty much an Excel sort of assignment. You're going to have a lot of graphs and stuff that you need to do. And again, you can click through that link right there, and that will take you to a place where you can submit your assignment when it is due. So right now there's not due dates, but there will be due dates. And again, I anticipate that probably the kinetics one will be due next week. This activity one might be due the following week at some point. Again, there's a lot of graphs and stuff that you have to make on that. Any questions on how to submit basically an assignment or anything like that? And again, like I said, I'm not tied to Adobe Scan or anything like that, but I do know I believe it's free, and I think it works on iPhones and Android phones. And I think somebody put up like kind of the link and instructions on how to use it, so that's probably a pretty good one. But again, if you have a scanner, you have some other type of program that will convert your stuff into a file, it's all good. Yeah, so in terms of carbon pages, so when you submit something, for example, like the lab report that's going to be due next week, the kinetics of the acetone triiodide, what you should submit is everything that you would normally submit in person. So for us, what that means is you should have, for that one, you should have the type lab report. So you do need to scan in all the pages of your type lab report. You do also need your carbon pages. So you do need pictures in that file of your carbon pages. Then obviously your pre-lab questions, which as we talked about was okay for you to do in your carbon pages. So obviously when you take the pictures of your carbon pages, your pre-lab questions should be there. Now, as I mentioned, like when we were in class together in person, make sure that I could clearly see, especially the pre-lab questions as they are part of your grade. So when you scan it in, or if they're written on your carbon pages, make sure you sort of highlight them, that I could clearly see the pre-lab questions so I don't miss them when I'm looking through them. But essentially for the lab report, the formal lab report, you need to have in that file, obviously, your completed type lab report, just like you would if you were printing it out. So it should have like the introduction, the data with the tables, the graphs, should have the results section, should also have the post-lab questions. And as we talked about, you again could do, if the post-lab questions are something that's sort of a typed answer, you could type it. If it's a typed and sort of calculations, you could type it, print it out, again, work out the calculation, however you want to do that. But all the components of like the normal lab report that you would just hand in to me in person will still need to be there in that file. So type lab report, carbon pages, and again, your post-lab questions and your pre-lab questions with that. Any questions on what should be turned in? Now, just like in person and when we would do these labs, not all lab reports will necessarily be a formal lab report where you have to type up stuff, but you probably will, for most of the labs, have some aspect that you have to type. So you may have to make maybe some data tables and maybe just write a results part. Some of it you may just be able to sort of record on your manual pages and kind of scan those pages in, and that will pretty much be the report, maybe the manual pages and your carbon pages. So for example, off the top of my head, I think maybe something like maybe the redox experiment. I think in the actual manual, if I'm not mistaken, there's like tables and stuff that you could kind of fill in, or that you can make in your carbon pages, those tables. And that probably for that experiment, for example, would be sort of the lab report, just kind of uploading all those pages filled in with the pre-lab, post-lab. So again, as we go through each of these experiments, some, just like in person, would be more of a report that you would sort of do a full type lab report, like the one that's due next week, or some will be more like, kind of fill in the information or do it in your carbon pages, and then that would be the lab report. So we will talk about each of those labs and sort of just like normal for this lab, this is what I expect for the lab report and when it will be due and stuff like that. And probably what I'll end up doing on each of the lab reports after sort of these two here, or maybe this one I'll fix, but I'll type in the description. So when you click on it, it'll say like, upload your lab report. It should contain a formal type lab report, pre-lab, post-lab questions. So I'll give you some information. You can kind of click on it to check what to actually do for each of those. Again, some may be full lab reports, some may just be just kind of fill in the blank almost kind of deal on your carbon pages. Any questions on that there? So everything else, by the way, on our Canvas page that was up there from the beginning is still up there. I think Mount Sac put all this in here for about going online. So the link to the textbook is still up there. The review material for exam 1, for exam 2, and exam 3, all that stuff is still up there, and you can still obviously access it. So sort of the new stuff is obviously here towards the top, the links to listen to the lecture, and again, the lecture notes. Yeah, so here's the deal. So in terms of the lab report, if you could do it in PDF, it's probably the easiest way, I would think. It doesn't necessarily have to be PDF. To be honest with you, the files, Canvas will accept any type of file, I think, or most files. But usually in a PDF sort of form, it'll put everything in sort of the right order and stuff like that. So the lab report does need to be converted electronically. So for example, if you've already printed it out, again, you can use something like that app there to basically scan in to your phone or whatever it is, the lab report, and convert all those sort of pictures into one file. And then you could just upload one file of your lab report. And that's probably the best way to do it. Again, if you're having trouble getting everything, honestly, into one file, you can just, you can do it old school if you want to take pictures and upload each of the pictures. But for us, because they're type lab reports with carbon pages, you could end up having to upload a ton of individual sort of files or pictures to do that. So if you could kind of take all your pictures and stuff and sort of combine them into one sort of file for you as well, that would probably be easier because you won't miss anything or forget, oh, I forgot to upload, pages 3 and 4, and I did like 1, 5, and 6, so if you kind of have everything together, you could open that file before you open it or before you upload it. And you could just double check, okay, everything is there. I got all the pages. I didn't miss something. Like I said, if you can't by some chance be able to do that and you need to kind of do it, picture by picture, Canvas will take it. But again, you might just run into a little problem where maybe you might miss something and think you uploaded it, but you didn't. So the nice thing for you as well, if you're able to turn it into just one file, you could click on that file before you upload it and just double check, hey, I got everything, in that file. Other questions about that? Okay. Any other questions about sort of the course, how we're going to proceed at this point? So again, everything, my understanding, is going to be 100% online. It's not up here yet, but like I said, in this module section, there will be another one titled Labs. And some labs will require you to go through each of the steps sort of in order. So in order to sort of progress through the lab, you have to do the first part first and then the second part. And like I said, some of the labs may just be a combination of some PowerPoint slides, it may be a combination of videos, maybe a combination of pictures as well. Yeah, so up here is this handout right here is basically the PowerPoint slides that you'll see during lecture. So when you click on that, it's just like what you have in class, except I believe these will all be filled out for you, except for the examples. So the examples you will kind of work out during lectures. And like I said, the nice thing about sort of the recordings as well, even if you're here live, you could go back and look through those recordings in case you want to put yourself to sleep or something like that. You need something to help you with that. But you could also go back and look at those recordings, and you can see everything that's going to be online. So just like you can see now, hopefully, I hope you could be, everybody could see everything I've been pointing to. But just like you see now, when we do the recordings and the lecture, I'm going to continue to lecture through PowerPoint. So basically, I will share my PowerPoint screen with you, just like I would be projecting it up on the screen. So just like, I'm going to stop sharing for now, for example. And just like, where did that thing go? Just like what we have right here. This would be just like the PowerPoint slide, you know, that I would sort of display there up online. and that's why that's not working. Give me one sec. Unplug something here. There it goes. Give that a go. Hey, I'm alive there. And if I, you know, if we're working out a problem and we're doing, you know, like H2 plus, you know, N2 gives you NH3. Put like a 2 there maybe, and like a 3 there. So everything I'm writing here, for example, on the screen, when you go back and you look, you'll be able to see obviously just like that. And when you go back, if you want, and look at the recordings that will be posted up online of everything that we sort of do for lecture, for sure, you'll be able to see everything as it gets scribbled on the screen, just like you were watching it sort of in person as well. So you'll have sort of the notes. So if you want to print out the notes still and sort of follow with them printed out, you can. Or if you want to use a tablet or whatever you got and use those notes and follow electronically, you can as we're lecturing. But again, you'll be able to see everything, you know, that comes on the screen, you know, and it'll also be recorded. So everything that I write will be recorded. So you can, again, if you miss something for some chance or for some reason, you can kind of go back and find it and see what I wrote on the screen and stuff like that. Yeah, so my understanding is it is going to be 100%. I don't know if officially they've said the entire rest of the semester, but that would be my guess, is the rest of the semester here is going to be 100% online. I think, you know, that is my understanding of what's going to happen. Now, I would also remind you, and I would encourage you to make sure you, just like me and everybody else, I think you may be getting emails from maybe the president and the school, maybe administration and that type of stuff. I would read through those emails. Again, they do have some information, including some information about some maybe different policies that maybe are in effect for this semester, maybe in terms of withdrawal dates and situations of that nature. So I don't want to say anything for sure because I don't 100% know the answer. I teach at 5 different schools, so everybody's slightly different. But, you know, I would recommend maybe don't just ignore some of those emails that come through from not just me, obviously, don't ignore mine, I hope, but from the school as well. Because again, they may have some information that might be important to you in terms of maybe options and stuff like that, you know, for the course and stuff like that, and all your classes and stuff. So make sure you just kind of go through those and see what they are saying. Other questions on sort of the class, how we'll proceed, you know, from this point forward or anything like that? Obviously, in terms of if you do need to get me and stuff like that, you can still always email me still at my normal email. So that's the AEFRON at mountsac.edu. Yeah, homework will still be due on exam dates. So again, you know, I'll be honest with you, our stuff is basically best written out. So you still should probably write out your homework. And again, you'll have to, on exam day, you'll have to upload a file for your homework. And there will be a link in that section where we just were for that. And again, you'll need to turn kind of your written pages into a file so that you can upload it. So that's something as we go forward here into next week, since we are going to take the quiz, we're going to give it a go here on Tuesday of next week. These are things you want to kind of think about, you know, how you're going to upload or turn sort of a written paper into a file. In addition, your lab reports do. So in the next few days, you do want to kind of think about that. You might want to try it out, make sure you understand how to properly do it, especially before you get to something like a quiz or an exam where you have sort of a time period to upload your work and stuff like that. Um, so you might just want to practice doing that. And again, like I said, probably for most people, a phone app or something like that is probably the easiest way maybe to do that. Or if you have a scanner, you can scan it in and stuff like that, or a printer that's able to scan, you can do those type of things as well. Any questions about the class or anything as we proceed forward? I think I hit most everything, if I'm not mistaken, that we normally do. So again, this is typically how lectures and everything will go, and you should always, just like normal, feel free to ask questions. Again, the reason I keep the microphones off is I just don't want everybody sort of talking over each other. In addition, I'm not really sure where you're picking up this lecture, so microphones can pick up a lot of background noise and stuff like that. So somebody walks by your computer and your microphone's on, we'll hear everything and stuff like that. And in terms of the video aspect, I'm really not going to use the video aspect of it just for my point, because I have to kind of see my screen when everybody pops up their video. There's just a lot of boxes and I can't really see what I'm trying to show you and stuff like that. So, and then just for the same reason, we really don't want to see what's maybe going on, with the video aspect either. I don't want to see something I shouldn't, or others see something they shouldn't as well. Any questions about any part of the class or anything like that? Yeah, so the lab experiments, again, at this point is going to be 100% online because of the situation. I do understand. I do understand what you are asking there in terms of they do requirements of in person. I can't speak for any particular school or anything like that, but I imagine because of the situation that occurred, uh, they may be a little bit more relaxed on that. Again, I'm not 100% sure either on that aspect of it. And that's why typically chemistry classes aren't done like this 100% online. They still usually come in person to do the labs. Obviously, at this moment, it was determined that that would obviously not be the best course of action to be in person to do these things. So to try to keep the course going, um, they've turned to doing labs like we're going to do it, at least at this short period of time. At some point, they may switch over to some type of approved program to do the labs, but for the rest of our semester, this is how we're going to be doing the labs. Yeah, I would agree with that advice. Again, everything sort of happened very quickly. So you might want to contact whoever, you're worried about it to make sure. And that's what I was saying earlier as well. I believe there may be some options. And again, I'm not 100% sure, but there may be some options where um, you may have an option to maybe withdraw from this class and it won't count against you as attempts and stuff like that. But I don't want to tell you that that's 100% correct. So that's why I would say make sure you do read those emails and announcements that come from, say, the president or maybe missions directors or somebody more official at the school, because they may have some information about sort of options that you could do for your classes this semester that you might not normally be able to do, and in terms of maybe withdrawing and stuff like that. So again, I'm not officially saying any of that's possible. I think there might be some aspect that is possible in that sense, if that's a better option for you. But I would recommend whatever you decide, make sure that you research, the ramifications of whatever you decide. There's always sort of pros and cons for everything. So I would definitely make sure you look at the sort of announcements that are being sent out by the president and the college and stuff like that, because a lot of times they will have some information. So if I'm not mistaken, I think maybe there was one sent out last week, maybe by the president, or towards the beginning of this week, I guess maybe or the end of last week, that has some information about it. I think for students, specifically about also some things that might be available if you need some help with. I think computers and access, so I think there's some information about that was also sent out. So I know we have a tendency maybe like, I'm not going to read these emails, but you might want to make sure you take a look at them because they may have might have some important information that will help you. So in terms of this class, it is going to be 100% online, and the department decided in terms of the labs, this is how they're going to handle it and do these sort of modules, which consist of maybe videos, PowerPoints, and pictures of the experiment being done. You would still be obviously given the information and complete the written part of the lab report. And that's at least for this semester how they've decided to sort of progress with it. Other questions? Yeah, and like the person there said, you know, I would contact, always a good idea in any situation, even a normal situation, about things like, does this class count, does it transfer, you know, it's always good to contact wherever you're trying to go in terms of that and check with them, because they're ultimately the ones that usually will say yes or no is the place where you're going. So that's usually a good idea to check with them. Any other questions about anything about going forward the class or anything like that? So like I said, today's meeting was just hopefully to get, you know, all this kind of business stuff out of the way. I appreciate you joining in here on technically our holiday and stuff like that, but I thought it was a good idea just, you know, to sort of give everybody an opportunity to sort of join in and meet and make sure, you know, technology wise, everybody's able to kind of to get here together. So going forward, like I said, we're going to maintain our normal sort of period, and that means that lectures will happen on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9:45. And like I said, I will most likely open up a lab section as well at a normal time at 12. That's I think when we start 12. And, you know, I'll be there for a while, and you could obviously pop in and if you have questions, or again, there might be times where I will tell you I'm going to be lecturing during the lab time, at least at the beginning. So you definitely would probably want to pop in so you could listen to that part of the lecture and stuff like that. In terms of office hours, again, you can kind of do through email like normal. If you need me in person, like I said, I'll kind of be there during our lab time or a little bit before our lab time. You know, you can do that. If you need me kind of one-on-one, we could schedule a meeting through here as well and sort of meet that way as well. So that could be an option if you need sort of one-on-one sort of help. But again, probably the lecturing would be a very good way. And, you know, I'll stay and answer your questions. Our lab part, I'll stay and answer your questions and stuff like that. Because that's normally when our in-person would happen, kind of between lecture and lab and then after lab. So that sort of time period will still be, you know, I'll be available to answer questions if you have. All right. Anything else about anything? So officially on Thursday, we will continue lecturing chapter 13 when I figure out and try to remember where we left off. And so this Thursday, we will continue lecturing on chapter 13. Technically, the lab that will be scheduled for this Thursday will be the integrated kinetics experiment, which again is really a Excel exercise. So like I said, I will open up a lab on Thursday, and it probably would just be there to answer questions. If you do have questions, again, if you have that time, I would encourage you to kind of work through those labs so that if you do have questions, you can pop in and sort of ask your question and hopefully get it answered. Then starting next week on Tuesday, a week from today, we will continue lecturing and obviously continuing through that revised schedule that you can find on the Canvas site. And again, this coming Tuesday, a week from today, we will take the chapter 12 quiz that we were supposed to take, I think, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I don't remember when it was, maybe 2.5 weeks ago. So we'll take the quiz online through Canvas. And again, before Tuesday, I'll be honest with you, I have a lot going on with all my classes. So towards the end of the week, probably, excuse me, maybe even the weekend, you know, I'll give you some more direction about where you can find the quiz, when you can take the quiz and all that. Yeah, so in terms of the pre-labs for all the labs, I'm not sure there is pre-lab. Is there pre-lab questions for that one? I don't recall off the top of my head. There might be. I'm gonna say for this lab coming up on Thursday, don't worry about completing the pre-lab. You should obviously complete it. You need to do it if there is pre-lab, but you don't have to submit it if that's sort of your question. So for this one that's coming up, since it's the first one coming back, if there are pre-lab questions, again, I don't recall off the top of my head if there were or not. I think there might be. You don't have to worry about submitting it. For future labs, you may have to submit your pre-lab questions before you start the lab on the day it's scheduled. So for the one on, excuse me, the one on Thursday, the next one, you don't have to worry about submitting the pre-lab, but I'll let you know for future experiments if you need to submit the pre-lab before we begin technically the lab on that day. Other questions? Okay, then if there's no other questions, I think I will end this lecture. And again, I appreciate you coming in, technically on a holiday, but it was good. As you can see, it took a good amount of time to get through all this stuff. That way, at least on Thursday, we could kind of just pick up with lecturing, kind of right off the bat. So that's what we'll do. We'll pick up lecturing chapter 13, which is equilibrium, on Thursday, again at our normal time. Again, there will be a sort of an invitation where you found this one. I'm assuming maybe most of you went through the module section, or again, you could go through the Confer Zoom section and you could access it. There's no other questions. Thank you very much for coming, and we will see you again virtually on Thursday. Yeah. Have a good rest of your day. All right. Have a good day, everybody.